Hey guys, it's Will with Terrible Infant. Blu-ray pickups, some DVDs, well, one DVD, I think, mostly Blu-rays. I'm going to show you my fat stack right here, and then we'll get into it. There's a book in the middle there, and that book is not a pickup. I'm just going to talk to you about that book because it relates to one of the things that I got. So two of the things in here were birthday presents. My birthday's in March, and they one of them didn't release until the end of June, so they shipped together, and I got them like a week or two ago. And then there's just some other stuff that I've picked up recently, and I'm going to talk about. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about here, I will say that it is one of, I don't want to call it like one of my favorite movies ever, and you'll see why in a second, because it seems weird to call it like a favorite movie given the subject matter and stuff. It's one of the most profound, purely cinematic, original, incredible, emotionally overwhelming, like destructive, harrowing films I have ever seen. And the movie is Come and See. So I first saw this movie like maybe 15 years ago. I stumbled upon the Kino DVD at like my local video store. And I was like, this movie looks interesting. I should see this. And I was completely unprepared for what I saw. And it's impossible to describe this movie because it's so unique and it's so powerful that even if someone tells you that, you can't get ready for it. And the best thing that I can do to describe what it's like as a film is Apocalypse Now meets Schindler's List. The film is about the Nazi genocide in Belarus during World War II. At the time, it was the Soviet Union. It's now the independent nation of Belarus. And so it has the Schindler's List kind of like aspect of the genocide and the brutality and the kind of unflinching portrayal of the absolute inconceivable horrors of what were happening at the hands of the Nazis. But it has this really surreal, almost psychedelic, like overwhelming, like Tarkovsky-esque, Coppola-esque, like style and kind of like the marriage of the acting, the events of the film, the way that it's shot. The cinematography is extremely unique and really, really, like you get it first. It's like a little bit weird, and then you get pulled into it, and it's almost like being hypnotized. And there's actually an interview on, this is the Criterion edition, with Roger Deakins, who is probably the most famous cinematographer in the world right now, along with maybe Chibo, who shot, like, he shoots all of Alfonso Cuarón's stuff. But Roger Deakins, he works with the Coen brothers. He shot Sicario, he shot the new Blade Runner, Prisoners. He works with Denis Villeneuve, I think is how you say his name. I don't speak any French, but he's French-Canadian. But he's a really incredible director, obviously, and they have a really fruitful partnership together. He shot Skyfall, Roger Deakins did. So anyway, this is a really, really genuinely incredible film, and it has been unavailable for a really long time. That Kino DVD that I was talking about went out of print a long time ago, and I've seen it on eBay for anything from like $40 to like $250. I'm not kidding. I once saw it sell for $250. Which maybe gives you some indication of how highly people value this movie. And I'm also not kidding when I tell you I have sent multiple emails to the Criterion Collection over like the past 15 years being like, you guys got to put this movie out. You got to put this movie out. You got to put this movie out. So it's a relatively long film. It's 2 hours and 22 minutes. It's in Belarusian, Russian, and German with English subtitles. And so you have a new 2K restoration here. Uncompressed soundtrack. There's an interview with Roger Deakins, like I said. So L.M. Klimov is the guy who directed this film. And actually, from what I understand, and I can't attest to this with absolute certainty, but I think this was the last film he made. And he said in interviews that he had said everything that he could or would want to say in this film. And that was just it. And he stopped making movies. So his brother, German Klimov, is interviewed in here. There's 3 1975 films from a documentary series featuring first-hand accounts of survivors of the genocide in World War II and what is now Belarus. An interview from 2001 with L.M. Klimov. Interviews from 2001 with actor Alexei Kravchenko and production designer Viktor Petrov. and then there's a short about the making of the film, theatrical release trailer. I can't overstate how incredible that film is, and if you're a huge fan of cinema, if you can stomach the subject matter, you have to see that movie. So the other film that I got from Criterion Collection as part of that order was Nashville. So if you saw my other recent big Criterion haul, I talked about The Player and how I'd never seen a Robert Altman film before, and he was featured very heavily in this book that I read, which is why I have this book here. It is called Easy Riders Raging Bulls, and it is about Hollywood in the 1970s. It starts in the late 60s with Easy Rider and with the Warren Beatty movie Bonnie and Clyde, and then it goes up until like the early 80s, basically like Empire Strikes Back is touched upon and kind of stuff like that. It's a very long book, and I finished it, and it's truly incredible. And if you're a huge fan of American cinema, Hollywood cinema, especially that Coppola, Scorsese, Spielberg, Brian De Palma, like that generation of filmmakers, who else is in here? Paul Schrader, John Milius. You definitely have to read it. But anyway, Robert Altman is like all over the place in this book, and he's like a really big name who pops up a lot, and I was like, I gotta see some Altman films. I am also, like, when I first got into cinema, I was a huge fan of Paul Thomas Anderson, like Boogie Nights, Magnolia, like those movies, and obviously There Will Be Blood is one of the best movies, and of the past, like, whatever, 20 years, like one of the best American movies of the century so far, for sure. And so I know Nashville is kind of like, along with, I think, Shortcuts and maybe like MASH, I think kind of considered Altman's like masterpieces. So I was like, I gotta check that movie out. And Criterion released it, and so I put it on my birthday list, and I received it. So thank you so much. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes, and there's a lot of good bonus features on here. And like I said, I haven't seen this one, so I can't talk too much about it. I did watch The Player, and I really loved it, and there's a lot of great bonus features on that Blu-ray, so I'm probably going to review that Blu-ray at some point in the not-too-distant future. So that's that. So next up, actually, I have something that I bought with the money from our Patreon. We have a Patreon. We have 3 patrons right now, and we make about, well, I think we're making $18 a month, but after the taxes and stuff, it's like 16, like $15.50 or something like that. But that's enough to buy movies. We could buy like 1 or 2 movies a month, depending on how much we spend on them. And so I got this movie with that money specifically to review for the channel. This is a film I have never seen the full version of before, and I've never seen the widescreen version of before. I've only seen like the pan and scan, heavily edited American home video release. This movie is completely bananas. It's completely insane, and I had completely forgotten about it until Gareth Evans, who is the director of The Raid and The Raid 2, and London Gangs of London, that the show that came out recently that's apparently phenomenal that I haven't seen yet, and various other things. Merantu, which is another great film with Iko Uwais. So he posted about this recently on Instagram, and I was like, oh, that movie. So it's actually out of print on DVD as best I can tell, and I found some DVD copies of it for like $60 or $70, and I looked and looked and looked on eBay, and I was able to get this for $10 plus the shipping. The movie is G.I. Samurai, starring Sonny Chiba. Hell to the yes. Let me tell you how insane this film is. This is, so like I said, I saw like a 90-minute version of this, I think. This is 2 hours and 20 minutes long. This came out in 1979, and so if you don't know, Japan does not have like a military anymore in the sense that the U.S. has like this massive military, or, you know, like Russia, China, whatever. After World War II, they created what is called, I think, the National Defense Force, and so they have troops and they have equipment, but it's essentially there for national defense, right? And like, I don't think that any Japanese troops had been in any armed conflict since World War II until the Iraq War. I might be wrong about that, but I lived in Japan when the Iraq War was happening, and it was like the first Japanese soldiers to die in combat since World War II, I think. And obviously the Japanese were very upset about that, and there were a lot of protests and stuff around. I mean, they weren't like huge protests, but like, you know, in like the major, like in Shibuya and places like that, like you'd see protesters out protesting the U.S. and the war and stuff like that. I digress. So the National Defense Force, they got tanks, they've got machine guns, they're out on patrol, they've got helicopters, and they fall into a time slip, and they go back to the days of the samurai. And here's where it gets even more insane. So an American movie like this, right, you have soldiers, they go into the past. Probably the plot is going to be someone's being exploited, and the good American soldiers have to rescue them with their great weapons, right? In this movie, the main guy played by Sonny Chiba realizes that he has the perfect opportunity to realize his lifelong dream of ruling Japan. And so he decides to partner with one of the samurai clans to destroy all the other ones with his modern weapons so that he can rule Japan. This movie is insane. There are like the final. I've never seen the uncut version of the final battle, and like I said, I've never seen the widescreen version before. But I guess it's like half an hour long, and there's like tanks fighting samurai on horses. Like it's so I'm really excited to watch that. So everyone who donates to our Patreon, thank you so much, because you have enabled me to pick this up so I can review it for you. And so this last thing actually is not like a new pickup. I've already talked about this on the channel. It's Sullivan's Travels. This is a Preston Sturges film that I bought from Criterion with a gift certificate I got for my birthday. And so the reason I wanted to talk to you about this is that this is just a super cool thing that Criterion did. I bought this, and when it shipped, the case was a little smashed up here. And so I just kind of like, I'm always hesitant to like email people about stuff like this, because it's like I want the movie because I want the movie, not because I want a plastic case, right? So does it really matter that the plastic case is smashed up? Not really. But I let my I don't know, consumerism, my vanity, I don't know, get the better of me. And I emailed them and I was like, hey, this case got a little smashed up in the mail. Like, I don't want to rob you of another copy of the film or whatever, but like, I don't know, is there anything, what do you guys do in situations like this? And they're like, yeah, we have an online form, go fill it out and we'll send you another case. I was like, okay, cool, perfect. And the guy was like, it might take some time because of coronavirus and our office is in New York City and we're not allowed back into the office right now, but we'll get it to you eventually. I was like, cool, no worries. And I just kind of forgot about it. Honestly, I watched the movie. It's a great presentation. Obviously, Criterion has some great special features on there. It's a really good movie too. And it's kind of astounding that it came out, I think 1940. Like if you watch this movie, like this movie could have been made now, because it's about the complete cluelessness of entertainment executives and how they claim that they want to make these harrowing works of art about the life of the average American, but they don't know jack shit about the life of the average American. So the guy actually goes out to try to live like the life of a tramp in the 40s and like hops on a train and like, but it's very much making fun of that world, not making fun of the average American, basically. And it's a very humanist kind of film, but it's very, very funny too. It's like a really good satire. It came out in 1941, I saw in the back. So anyway, the point being, Criterion emailed me like maybe a week ago, and we're like, hey, we never sent you that case. We still can't get back in the office. Do you mind if we just send you another copy of the film? Do I? No, I don't mind. Please, by all means. I mean, I feel kind of like a dick, because I'm like, I don't want you to like waste your inventory, because I've watched the movie and the cases, I'm like, so I wrote back and I was like, that's very kind of you. If that's what you want to do, yeah, that's totally fine. Don't feel as though you have to. Like, I'm fine with the one that I have. But as you can see here, I got this in the mail and there's nothing wrong with this case. And so I guess this video is just an appreciation of Criterion. And the fact that, like, I mean, I buy a lot of Criterion movies, but I'm not by any means an important customer to them. And I know that based on the volume of stuff that other people buy, which is just crazy. Like, I don't spend that much money on it, all things considered. So it's just a nice thing for them to do, I guess. So yeah, so my name is Will. Those are my most recent pickups. I thank you very much for watching. Like I said, we have a Patreon if you want to check it out. All that money goes back into the channel. We buy movies. We boost our posts to get more people in the door. We very rarely spend money on boosting our posts, but we've done it a couple times. We buy posters, we buy books, like all kinds of stuff to cover for the channel. So, yeah, that's about that. You've been watching Terrible Infant. Subscribe if you feel like it. That'd be great. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.